Hello and good evening to you. Welcome to News 360 and it's live money news up here at Desawe in Kanda. My name is Alfred Okansi.
And I'm Natalie Ford. A look at the top stories this evening.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by
National Labour Commission to suspend salaries of worker groups for flouting Labour Act.
Chief Justice says alternative dispute resolution could become mandatory for all civil disputes before trial.
Also ahead this evening, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Echiahene fears forced mergers within the banking industry could be disastrous.
And in business tonight, the government secures $2 million from Africa Development Bank to start and train startups.
And on the international front this evening, Democratic Republic of Congo boycotts UN donor conference for exaggerating humanitarian crisis. We've got the details of these stories for you here on News 360, including news from the world of sports and entertainment, streaming live all across the world on 3news.com, as well as TV3 Ghana on Facebook. You can also watch us on DSTV channel 279.
Absolutely. And to our first story tonight, a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Echiahene, has cautioned the Bank of Ghana not to force banks into mergers simply because they cannot raise the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis by December 31. He noted there are different risk complexities, systems and processes of each bank that could present stumbling blocks after the merger is effected.
The Council of State has advised indigenous banks who cannot meet new minimum capital requirement by the central bank to consider merging with other banks. However, a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Echiahene, is cautioning if care is not taken, a measure could be disastrous. He indicated if a measure goes well, the new company should appreciate in value as investors anticipate synergies to be actualized, creating cost savings and possibly increased revenue for the new entity.
If you merge and your asset base go up, your profitability goes up by say 20%, then we can say that 2 plus 2 is 5. That is what they call synergistic effect. And before you talk about mergers or acquisition or takeovers, one would have to understand everybody's concept, business model. Some of the business models cannot fit into other business models.
Dr. Richmond Echiahene noted the different risk complexities must be considered in terms of measures as well as studying the behavioral patterns of each potential partner.
Let's assume I am a mortgage bank and you tell me to go and take up an SME. The risk complexities are different. So when we want to talk about mergers, we should take our time and see how best we can merge. The do's and the don'ts, and before we talk about mergers. Mergers cannot be pushed on. Nigerians tried the mergers in 2004. In the end, they had some of the banks failed woefully.
Still on finance, the Bank of Ghana has put in motion a number of steps aimed at sanitizing the banking sector. The upward adjustment of the minimum capital requirement is one of such steps. But what does this mean to the ordinary Guinean? Well, Solis Roche-Quartey has been finding out.
The Bank of Ghana has set the minimum capital requirement at 400 million Ghana cedis. Now, this is to take effect by the end of December 2018. Now, defaulting banks who are not able to meet this requirement would or might be required to fold up. But we've hit the streets to find out exactly how much the average Ghanaian knows and understands about recapitalization.
I don't heard anything about it though. My mind is not in on those things yet.
You must do the business well, so the business must be raised. So Bank of Ghana always know his right. So always must be teaching those people, because when they didn't coach them well, they are always be failed.
Actually, I'm not using I don't have any account from the Bank of Ghana, so I don't know anything about the Bank of Ghana.
The minimum capital requirement means that the amount that you need to be able to run a bank here in Ghana. So it has to be something that is reasonable so that you don't easily go into liquidization where you have to cut off the banking sector. And I mean, people lose a lot of cash. People are insecure. They're not able to trust the bank enough to save their monies there.
While trying to get people to talk about something that they obviously didn't really understand was quite difficult as pulling teeth. And at least maybe gives you an idea of how much people actually understand when it comes to the minimal capital requirement or recapitalization in general. It was very, very difficult to have people admit on camera that they did not understand, especially since it's been a trending issue for the last few months, considering what has transpired in the banking sector. Solace Rose Quarty, TV3, Accra.
Well, a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Lord Mensah, has urged Ghanaian banks to diversify their credit and move away from government as their major debtor. This, he said, will reduce their dependence on government.
The Bank of Ghana in September 2017 raised the minimum capital requirement to 400 million cedis. Banks in Ghana have until December this year to raise their capital adequacy ratio or risk sanctions, based on concerns raised that government has been the major borrower of non-performing loans from district local banks as government borrows to finance most of its development projects. A senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Lord Mensah, said banks ought to diversify their clientele so they do not concentrate most of their funds on one entity, and they must bear full responsibility for all financial decisions made.
As a bank, you should be able to set your priorities right. I have come to understand that maybe the banks were too sleepy, trying to avoid the normal retailing of credit and find a way to concentrate their credit or their lending to the government. Then it might not necessarily be banking. In banking, you need to diversify your credit.
Answering questions on the prudence of recapitalization, he said the Bank of Ghana as the regulator should be allowed the independence to work. He said if they do not meet the capital adequacy ratio independently, they need to merge or be proactive and use the market to raise credit and meet the capital requirements.
If you look at what is happening on the ground, merger might not necessarily mean that people will lose their jobs. The merger can take place and still protect, the jobs. When there's a merger, it might not necessarily mean that a takeover where new management comes in. But this is a merger where interest must be kept in there. So in the end, I presume that the job losses within the banking sector might not necessarily be affected.
Based on petitions from the management of various local banks, President Akufo-Addo has set up a 10-member committee to deliberate on a reprieve as far as the minimum capital requirement is concerned. The 10-member committee will comprise of 3 members from the Bank of Ghana, 3 members from the Ministry of Finance, 3 members from the local banks, and a chairperson to be nominated by the President.
As you might already be aware, some local banks have been meeting the President, the Council of State, to make the point of they being given some time to meet this particular minimum capital requirement of 400 million, which essentially means the amount of money that any bank needs to operate as a universal bank in this country, as directed by the Bank of Ghana. December 31 is the deadline. Now, the Presidency and indeed the Council of State has reiterated the position of the Bank of Ghana on this particular issue. The bank's demand for it to be staggered has a precedence, I must say. But if you look at 2009, for example, where in February 2008, at about 60 million, there was then the minimum capital paid by banks was last fixed in February 2008 at about 60 million Ghana cedis for both local and foreign banks. During that particular period in 2008, foreign banks were required to meet that 60 million recapitalized figure of the minimum capital by 2009. But local banks had a deadline of December 2012. Now, it is on this basis that some local banks took that argument to the Presidency and also raising some questions about unfair playing field between themselves and some foreign banks operating in this country. Afterwards, a 10-member committee was established to look into their concerns. From what we do know, the terms of reference of this particular committee has not yet been communicated by the presidency. Keep an eye on this particular development and let you know about what's happening there. So, Natalie, that's how the picture really looks like. It's not very clear whether or not this push by the local banks is going to have the Bank of Ghana or indeed the presidency listen to their concerns.
We'll be waiting to see what the result of that is. But let's turn to some other stories now, as the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, has warned he will advise governments to suspend salaries of worker groups like NAGRAT for flouting the Labour Act 651. The Executive Secretary described as bad faith the earlier intention by the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, to embark on a nationwide strike.
The Executive Secretary of Ofosu Asamoah was reacting to the earlier decision by NAGRAT to declare a nationwide strike. The association was demanding its 5 years unpaid salary arrears amounting to 15 million cedis. Currently, government has already released 40 million cedis to pay them, while the rest will be paid by May 6. Although NAGRAT has suspended the strike, the National Labour Commission says the intention to strike was unfair. According to the Commission, NAGRAT should have respected the dictates of the Labour Act 651. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, noted leadership of NAGRAT acted in bad faith.
That strike was not declared in good faith at all. I thank God that it did not last beyond 5 days. Yes, because the government or the ministry delivered on its word. So, I hope it doesn't happen again.
He has pleaded strong commitment to advise government suspend salaries of such worker groups which flout the Labour Act.
If they declare a strike and the strike is illegal, you shouldn't be paid within the period which you stay home. That is what the government should do. Yes, we will advise. Because the government too had defaulted over the years. I mean, when people work, they should be paid. Not only be paid, but on time.
Already, some experts have accused the leadership of NAGRAT for suspending the strike instead of a call-off. But its president, Nj Kabonu, is of the view the suspension is in the right direction.
If we use the word call-off and we don't see commitment, we definitely are not going to rest on our hours. Definitely we'll have to rise and raise our voice and use whatever means appropriate at an appropriate time to ensure that we get what belongs to us.
He praised government for its commitment to settling the arrears.
They now have a semblance of hope that their monies will be paid. I have countless text messages indicating that now we believe that if we maintain the momentum, our monies will be paid. And that is what is most important.
Meanwhile, the NLC has pleaded with unions to always call off their strike instead of suspending it.
Meanwhile, the Labour Commission has directed the leadership of the WA Polytechnic and Ho Technical University to appear before it next week following protest to oust their various rectors. Now, the Commission has also directed aggrieved lecturers of the two institutions to halt their strike and resume work.
Lecturers at the WA Polytechnic have demanded the dismissal of their rector, Professor Mafo, for alleged financial malfeasance. The Governing Council Board immediately directed him to step aside for smooth academic work to take place. Barely 3 days after the directive by the Governing Council, lecturers at the Ho Technical University have also begun a sit-down strike. The lecturers accused their Vice-Chancellor for also allegedly engaging in financial malfeasance, while the Koforidua Technical University lecturers also demanded their board chairman to also step aside. These three institutions within 2 weeks are on a sit-down strike. But the National Labour Commission has directed them to halt the strike and resume work.
That is the direction. We have directed them to go back and teach. No, but if you don't want a council chairman like in the case of, I'm yet to hear them do, should it take the whole of the university to close down? Because, I mean, you see, there are rules of engagement. There's a process for the appointment and removal of council members and chairs. Has that been invoked? Who is the appointing authority? It's the president, I suppose. Yeah. Have they petitioned the president? Has the president acted?
Its executive secretary of Osua Samoa, who issued this strong warning, said failure to comply will attract legal actions.
The labor relations will always be there until retirement. So you don't throw one of the parties to court and come back and expect that they will work and have a good relation. No, that we manage it. But the powers are there. But if you are recalcitrant or you are difficult and we see that you just don't want to comply and abide by the law, then we surely deal with you.
The NLC has since subpoenaed the leadership to appear before it next week.
Let's turn to some legal issues this evening as the judiciary is considering making alternative disputes resolution mandatory for civil disputes before trial. If this becomes operational, litigants can no longer seek court trial of civil cases until all avenues of resolving the matter have failed. This was revealed by the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Justice Sophia Ekufu, at the launch of Game & Co. Alternative Dispute Resolution Center in Accra.
Ghana's justice system is perceived to be slow, expensive, and sometimes too cumbersome to access. That notwithstanding, people still flock the courts at a much higher rate than before, a situation that has put pressure on the civil litigation system, leading to cases being stretched and delayed. Various reforms to address the situation have not yielded much to enhance justice delivery in the country. The Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Sophia Ekufu, is suggesting that litigants adopt the alternative dispute resolution ADR mechanisms. Citing the sports sector as an example, she was worried this year's Premier League was delayed because one of the parties went to court over a matter that an ADR mechanism could have easily addressed.
In the light of these experiences, we are considering making ADR, even in the courts, mandatory for all civil disputes before they come to trial. I have made it clear to all the civil trial judges that in evaluating performance, we're not just going to count how many judgments you wrote, but we're going to look at the methodology, how many cases you were able to settle before it even came to trial.
This, she believes, would ease the pressure on the courts and enhance justice delivery.
When parties begin to use ADR to resolve their civil disputes, then the courts can concentrate on delivering quality judgments on issues of rights and criminality and constitutionalism. The judges will not feel pressured by the time and other factors and will be afforded more time to deliver decisions after making adequate research and developing enough familiarity with the case.
The Chief Justice, in launching the Game & Co. ADR Center, was hopeful the center would add to the options available to parties who have disputes. She advised the management and staff to uphold high professional standards and avoid conflict of interest as much as possible. Chairman of the Game & Co. ADR Center, Austin Game, said the center would leverage on the experiences over the years, focusing on new developments and harness potentials of trained practitioners as a center of choice.
This center has been put together to fill in that gap. We have a very unique 5-stage process using the pause. And within 90 minutes after the pre-meeting, you should be able to resolve your differences. It has always worked like that. If the case is a very notable case, then they will negotiate the fees. But a case between you and your husband, God forbid, can be resolved sometimes pro bono, sometimes with very little cost to take care of administrative things.
The center, he said, will deploy online dispute resolution tools with the assurance of providing the best security and confidentiality for parties.
Well, our citizen journalist tonight is a teacher at the Noah Halenga DA Primary School. He complains of cattle using the school as a thoroughfare and dangers it poses to pupils in the school.
This is Noah Halenga DA Primary. You can see how the cows are on the compound. One just entered the classroom, and I think people are waiting for something to happen before they take action. You can see there was a time ago, one of the cows jumped through the window here. It cracked the whole foam here on the window and came through, jumped here to crack this place with the belly. So you can see how thick tall the cows are, and it was only God who saved the kids. And as I'm seeing, they are waiting for one of the children to die, a cow to kill one of the children to die, before they take actions. We've done our best as teachers, but we need external hands. This is Dennis Wynn, reporting from Adan West.
It's a really worrying situation if you have thick-tall cows going through that classroom with toddlers, little children there. We hope that the action will be taken swiftly to solve this problem. But you can also send your video report via the WhatsApp number 055-1433-044, 055-1433-044. Nana Akua Mensah Abrampah is standing by with all the news in the world of business. After this, do stay.
You're still watching News 360. Good evening to you. Time for business with me, Nana Akua Mensah Abrampah. Well, I'm sure you've had a feel of some business updates, but there's still more. In our very first story for tonight, government has secured $2 million from the African Development Bank to train startups in the business environment. Now, part of the amount will be allocated to the private and the informal sectors to expand their businesses. And the Minister of Employment, the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafuiwa, is confident this will help governments create jobs. But we'll bring you that story later on. Let's move on to some more business tonight. And the Egyptian and Mexican ambassadors have both reiterated their commitment to a successful implementation of Ghana's local content policies and regulations. They, however, raised concerns about inadequate offerings by government to boost investor confidence. They spoke at a second Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference here in Accra.
The hope in Ghana's economy by development partners and investors is attracting funding for various programs being undertaken by government in the area of agriculture, infrastructure, health, and education. However, some investors have raised concern about what government brings onto the table during joint venture investments. Speaking at the second Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference, the Egyptian and Mexican ambassadors to Ghana expressed disquiet about some difficulties they face when negotiating joint venture investments with government.
Some of the major challenges here for investors is that when they come here, all what they are offered is land. And you know that land is not enough, and land is always disputed here in Ghana. Ghanaian investors or business people have to exceed the idea of just being a partner in what they offer, a static contribution, to something more, even with a less percent. This is not the issue. For us, most of the Egyptian companies that have been here came on their own.
Responding to the concerns raised by the investors regarding land acquisition in Ghana and inadequate offerings by government, Chief Technical Advisor at the Office of the Senior Minister, Robert Pokuche, urged them to exercise due diligence.
They are in respect of the strength of the Ghanaian investor in relationship with the foreign investor insofar as joint ventures are concerned. I mean, if you look at any project, it's got its own cost profile. So what he said, what is coming out is that it's the Ghanaian investor should be offering something more than land, which means they should be more resourceful. That is why, Bank of Ghana is getting our banks to increase their capital from 120 million to 400, so that they can do the big ticket projects.
The Namibian ambassador to Ghana, Charles Josop, called for more partnerships among Ghanaian companies to strengthen their position during negotiations.
Now to the ports, and even before the $1.5 billion expansion works is completed, two private firms are already in a turf war over which entity has the exclusive right to undertake cargo scanning at the Tema Port. Nick TC Scan Limited and Meridian Port Services Limited, MPS, are each laying claim to having sole rights to cargo scanning in the yet-to-be-completed port expansion project.
Beyond the corporate feud, the tussle has stalled the procurement and installation of scanners at the port, forcing both sides to seek redress at the Ministries of Trade and Industry and Transport with the hope of finding a lasting solution to the impasse. It has emerged that each of the firms has different contracts with different ministries. Checks show that Nick TC Scan had an existing agreement with the government to exclusively provide non-intrusive cargo scanning at the designated entry or exit points throughout the country, including the entire Tema Port until 2025. The firm's contract was first signed in 2004 with the Ministry of Trade and Industry to run for 10 years. It was, however, renewed in 2014 by the ministry to run for another 10 years. On the other hand, MPS, which is executing the $1.5 billion port expansion project, says it was unaware of the exclusive rights of Nick TC Scan to handle the scanning of containers. In a letter dated February 7, 2018 and sent to Nick TC Scan, MPS said the scanner facility that has been planned for the port expansion project is not a standalone process for just scanning the containers, but is an integral part of new port operational facilities that has been designed and integrated along with several automated processes and systems at the gate in and gate out. The MPS contract, which is on a build, operate and transfer BOT basis, was signed by the Ministry of Transport to last for 35 years. However, in an interview, General Manager of Nick TC Scan, Stephen Osei-Aniaje, expressed fear that MPS operating a cargo scanner could go contrary to the laid down rules to introduce a charge on consignment to overburden shippers, since it had been widely reported that MPS was to set its own tariffs.
And away from the ports, Chief Executive Officer of IT firm B Systems, Thomas Berfi, has called for more local involvement in the government agenda to digitize Ghana's economy. In response to these concerns, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, accompanied by leaders of 15 local ICT companies, visited the high-tech city of Silicon Valley in California for a 5-day working visit. Now, the Vice President held discussions with Silicon Valley's thought and technology leaders to explore the possibilities of developing strategic insights, policy and partnerships.
The visit to Silicon Valley by the Vice President and the leadership of the ICT firms is to engage the world leaders in ICT in order to exchange ideas and fashion Ghanaian solutions to Ghanaian challenges. In an earlier interview with TV3 Business on the sidelines of an international technology conference, Managing Director of B Systems, one of the local companies accompanying the Vice President, urged the government to engage them in its digital agenda.
Looking at the economy now and the way the government is also trying to help the government sector to digitalize, what we are also saying is that in any economy, the innovation starts first before regulations. So what we are saying is that the government should try and help most of the private sector to help them to digitalize all their solutions so that we are the ones that knows what is going on in the industry. So instead for them to bring people from outside to develop these solutions for us, they should harness what we have in place. And then the companies in Ghana, B Systems, we have Ranka Solutions, we have Insano, we have Hoptel, all these are companies that can really help the Ghana government instead of them always looking outside.
The meeting is aimed at helping to enhance the digitization of the Ghanaian economy to move Ghana beyond aid.
Right, so we're going back to that earlier story, talking about government securing some $2 million from the African Development Bank to train startups in the business environment. Well, part of the amount will be allocated to the private and the informal sectors to expand their businesses. Minister of Employment and Labour Relations Ignatius Bafui-Awuah is confident this will help government create jobs.
The amount was provided by the African Development Bank to the Ministry of Finance and Employment to support training. Models for the training were developed by the Management, Development and Productivity Institute, MDPI, to support the growth of small-scale businesses. Currently, available figures from the Employment Ministry indicate that the informal sector contributes to 80% of workforce in the country, while 7% of total workforce are located within the public sector and 6% employed by the private formal sector, which include the telecommunication companies. The amount provided by the African Development Bank is also to be used to train business operators within the West African sub-region. Currently, those who have been trained in Ghana went through accounting procedures, leadership skills, and how to improve on business. Minister of Employment and Labour Relations Ignatius Bafui-Awuah was elated government will achieve its job creation agenda.
The larger population wants to get work, then they have 85% chances of getting work within the informal sector, and that's where you operate. For me, it is good, at least we having the consciousness of seeing how best we can reshape our informal sector and make it the engine of growth so far as our country is concerned.
Director General of the MDPI, Odami Techi, spoke about strategies to promote productivity in the private sector.
I know your next question might be, why do we want to be like JIMPA? The answer would be no. We want to be like MDPI, the center of productivity. When you go to Asia, they have the Asian productivity offices. So we want to be the leader in productivity in Africa.
The $2 million funding from the African Development Bank will cover a 2-year period.
Right, and just before we wrap up for business tonight, you would want to know how the city is faring against its major trading currencies. We close day, business day. Well, the city to the other major trading currencies, talking about the dollar, the pound, and the euro, has depreciated. Looking at it at its buying price on the interbank market, it fared at 4 Ghana cedis 40 pesos, going same for the selling price. Now, when you're exchanging the cedi for that of the Great British Pound, you will buy it at 6 Ghana cedis 26 pesos and will be sold to you at the interbank level at 6 Ghana cedis 27 pesos. And for the cedi to that of the euro, it is also being bought at 5 Ghana cedis 42 pesos and 5 Ghana cedis 43 pesos when it is being sold. You remember that these figures would differ from one bank to the other, but when you visit the forex markets, it would be quite higher. So that's it for business tonight. More on 3news.com. My name is Nanekia Mensah Brampa. Enjoy your weekend. News 360 continues after this. Good evening.
Well, good evening. It's now time for some entertainment and lifestyle news with me, Nana Kwedrado, brought to you by Vodafone, Power to You, and FunMax, Fuel Your Day. So we've been counting down for the last couple of days. The build-up to the Vodafone Ghana Music Awards is on. In the next 36 hours, the best musician in Ghana will be crowned. And trust me, the stakes are very high. But how ready are we for the awards tomorrow? Joining us in the studio is from Charterhouse. I have the communications director, head of communications, Mr. George Quay, and also the GM, general manager in charge of MG Digital and MG Radio, Mr. Francis Doko. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
All right. So tomorrow is the night, and of course, there's a lot of anticipation, excitement, and heightened, hearts beating and all of that. But George, tell me, how ready are we for VGMA tomorrow?
By God's abundant grace, preparations have gone on quite smoothly, and even as we speak now, a few artists are doing their sound check even as we speak. God willing, by sometime around 4 a.m. today, the only artists that may need their sound check done should be our international acts who are arriving tomorrow morning, and then they'll do theirs once they arrive. So on our part, as humans, we've done what's possible. On our part, we've pulled all resources and logistics together to ensure that Ghana and Africa has a good show. We're leaving the rest into the hands of the good Lord Almighty.
Leaving the rest in the hands of the good Lord Almighty, indeed. Of course, what do we have in store for music enthusiasts, especially tomorrow night?
Well, the very best of their artists and more will be on stage. The event is going to be in the hands of Africa's #1 DJ, DJ Black. And of course, we've mentioned who our MCs are in the persons of John Dumelo and Bella Mundi. And of course, on the red carpet, we have our own Johnny Hughes right here from TV3 with AJ Sapong. So music lovers are going to have a swell night with back-to-back performances from some of the greatest tunes that entertained GH in the year 2017.
Okay, apart from the 20, I mean, we have 25 competitive categories. Are we expecting any other honorary awards tomorrow?
Yes, there are actually 17 competitive categories. There are other categories which are competitive. They are more industry related. Usually we like to focus on the ones that the public have a say in. Those 17 are the ones that we refer to as the very competitive categories. The others are industry, and then we have some 3 honorary categories. Those 3 are the traditional artist of the year, the instrumentalist of the year, and then the big one, which is the lifetime achievement honor, which this year is going to Na Amanoa, and it would be the first time a woman has won it.
Wow, great to know that. But let me come to you, Francis, quickly. On the path of media general, then again, how ready are we for the broadcast of the event online, on radio, and on TV?
Thank you, Ken. We have tried over the last week to make sure that we're very prepared for the event tomorrow in terms of television, all the technical issues that have to be done to make sure that we give a very smooth coverage of the VGMA on television, on our digital platforms, because we'll show it live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and it will also be on our radio stations, 3FM, Onuya FM, and Connect FM in Takrady. So we have tried very much together with Charterhouse to make sure that the technical issues are sorted, and we are ready to make sure that our audience, have this content tomorrow. Okay,
we have the exclusive right to broadcast the red carpet tomorrow, and like he rightly said, we have Johnny Hughes, our own Johnny Hughes, to be on the red carpet. Do we to expect anything from?
I mean, you always expect the biggest razzmatazz and glamour and everything else from the red carpet. And I believe that tomorrow will be. I mean, what the red carpet has done over the years is to make sure that we have our own Ghanaian fashion people making clothes for the people who will be on. I think what we've communicated very strongly this year is that the red carpet starts at 7 p.m. on TV3 and on all the channels I've mentioned earlier. So we expect that the people who will be attending, they need to be there on time so that we can have it done quickly, and then we finish and go to the main event.
Right, the 19th Vodafone Ghana Music Awards. In the past, I mean, we've had security, top-notch security. How secured are we tomorrow?
Yes, security is going to be on the high. It's going to be very, 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 very high at every part of the event, every part of the auditorium. I mean, if you don't have a ticket, if you don't have a pass, if you don't have a tag, if you don't have anything that admits you to any part of the auditorium, I'd advise you stay at home and watch it on TV3. The station is very reliable. It is very clear. Sound, everything is on point. You prove it by showing the nominees jam live from Cape Coast. You prove it by showing the 3 music awards. And nobody needs any further proof when it comes to the competence of TV3 to carry this and give Ghanaians very good coverage. So I would admonish everyone who doesn't have a ticket, don't worry yourself going to the Accra International Conference Center to be embarrassed. And for those that will be there, that do not have tickets but have passes and tags, please just follow the instructions on your tag. If it says backstage, backstage. If it says auditorium or foyer, stay there. If it says gate or security, just stay there. If it says main auditorium, stay there.
Don't embarrass
If it says all access, then you can go everywhere.
All right. What is the hashtag we are running with?
I think there will be a lot of activity on our social media channels, and the hashtag we are using is VGMA 2018 and VGMA on TV3.
VGMA on TV3.
On TV3. So you can follow everything that happens once you use that hashtag.
Beautiful.
Okay, all right, so that's about it. Now let's move on to the next story, and still on the VGMA, the clock for the 19th VGMA is ticking fast, and TV3 Entertainment this afternoon went to the Accra International Conference Center to follow up preparations and what is being done so far.
My rap calling, telling me that I'm falling. Spirits up in the morning, positive that I'm all in. Can't get under my skin, can't get sentimental, my friend. I was having fun a week ago, made this instrumental my 10.
Here with me now is the director of production, Nia Iti Hamani. What is the situation right now at the conference center?
Setup is ongoing. We've been here since Monday, leaving here almost 2-3 a.m. every night or every midnight, and so far it's been good. I mean, today we're starting full dress rehearsals today, so we're getting ready.
We're getting ready. So in a bit of getting ready, I see a lot of trusses, a lot of sound speakers, and all of that. I mean, what is the ambience going to look like?
You know, the ambience is almost every time exciting and revealing. I mean, this year is not going to be any different. We're going to put up something worth experiencing. You know, I don't need to speak a lot. Patrons will come and experience it.
You're starting your dress rehearsal tonight. Does that mean we have the foreign acts already in town?
Yes, the foreign acts will be arriving, and so everybody should be expecting them alongside our artists that we are celebrating come tomorrow. You know, so it's going to be a night, a lovely night. It's going to be an exciting night, and trust me, if you're not at a venue, then you should be sitting next to your TV, because TV3 will definitely bring everything to your doorstep.
We're gonna crank it up, turn it up, and then light it.
Now to some more stories. Expected to grace the VGMA stage on Saturday is the man described by many as Ghana's answer to live performance, Samini. Well, the celebrated reggae and dancehall artist Samini is hopeful his 2017 hit My Own will win the VGMA Reggae Song of the Year. He spoke on TV3's morning show, New Day.
What is there tomorrow? You're performing.
Yeah.
What is there?
Well, for the VGMA stage, it's always an opportunity to reaffirm the fact that you're an established artist in Ghana. So every time you're called there, you have to give your A game. So I'm there to represent myself to the fullest and to make sure I give Ghanaians the reason to keep pushing me and keep it.
Samina, are you picking up anything tomorrow?
I am very hopeful.
Which one are you picking?
The Reggae Song of the Year.
Reggae Song, My Own.
Yeah.
I see. What's that lyrics again? Okay.
Okay.
Okambra
footage na no ye risi. Nisi mujre smile siri. Penny once a minute no chili. Hey, me baby ni golden tree chocolate ye. Me tratoli.
All right, so that was Samini on there. Of course, the excitement is heightened. Tomorrow we are going to be there. Don't forget, it's hashtag VGMA on TV3 and hashtag VGMA 2018. Thank you, George, and thank you, Francis, for coming. And we'll see you tomorrow on the red carpet.
I'll take a look at what's making news on the international front. The United Nations is holding a donor conference in Geneva on April 13, 2018. It hopes to raise £1.7 billion to ease what it calls a major humanitarian crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But an unprecedented move, the Congolese government has refused to attend the event, alleging that the UN has exaggerated the scale of the problem. Aid agencies say the Democratic Republic of Congo is suffering a long-neglected, very serious humanitarian crisis. The UN states 13 million people are in need in the Central African country, and over 2 million children are acutely malnourished. UN aid agencies further report 4.5 million people are displaced from their homes. For the United Nations, that is a level 3 crisis, which is the most severe. This assessment, however, has offended the Democratic Republic of Congo, which views level 3 as exaggerated and even insulting. In response to this, Congo plans to boycott the conference. UN officials say they still hope the DR Congo's diplomats will change their mind and attend the meeting. In the event that the boycott is carried on, the donor conference will still go ahead, as aid workers say millions of lives remain at stake.
All right, so we want to say thank you for spending your 60 minutes with us here on News 360. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're grateful. My name is Alfredo Kanzi, but do remember, tomorrow, right from tonight, as a matter of fact, the hashtag is VGMA on TV3. Hashtag VGMA on TV3.
Certainly, Alfred. So you can follow us on Twitter there, hashtag VGMA on TV3. I'm Natalie Fort. Thanks so much for watching. There's more news on our website. It's 3news.com. Have a lovely evening.